Even through all of the ups and downs, I absolutely love the MCU. In the last 4 years, they have expanded to the multiverse, and with that, bigger stories, more characters, and more projects. With Echo now streaming on Disney+, I wanted to rank the entire Marvel Cinematic multiverse. From Echo to Eternals, Spider-Man to Morbius, Multiverse of Madness to Daredevil, there are now an extensive list of MCU projects, so in this video I want to rank them all from the worst to the best. The tiers we have today are didn't see, bad, meh, good, great, and best of the best. Now before we get into my list, let me know your ranking for all of these movies in the comments down below. Both wasting any more time, let's get right into it. There are so many movies on the list, but let's get started. First, we have Ant-Man and the Wasp. This one, I'm gonna go meh. I don't think this movie is bad by any means. I feel like a lot of people hate on it a lot. It is just painfully average to me, but I will say I absolutely love the first Ant-Man movie, so this is kind of just a copy and paste of the same one. That's why it's in meh and not higher, where the other Ant-Man movie would be. But moving on, we have the next Ant-Man movie. I'm putting this in great. I think this is one of the most underrated movies of all time. Obviously, I would have liked to see Edgar Wright's version of it, but for what this film is, I really do like it. I think Paul Rudd has so much charisma. I think Yellow Jacket is actually one of the better MCU villains in general. I know it's a crazy hot take, but that's my insane. This video is gonna have so many hot takes you guys aren't already. But Ant-Man is absolutely awesome. It's such a fun heist movie, and it does a great job of, and I feel like a lot of people don't talk about this, setting up the base in the future of the MCU, just in terms of expanding the base of how many heroes we actually have. Then we have Age of Ultron. This one I'm gonna go good. It'll probably end up being at the bottom of good by the end of this video, just because I think it's a good film. I just think it's the worst Avengers film, which I think everyone agrees on that fact, but I think it gets a lot of hate because of that reason. I think it's really underrated because people are automatically like, oh, it's the worst Avengers film. I do think it's slightly unfocused. I think it is more of a Tony Stark film than an actual Avengers film, but I really like this film and how it leads into the other Avenger movies. And then we have Avengers Infinity War. This is best of the best. And this probably won't move from this top spot the entirety of this video unless something else comes to mind. This film is absolutely amazing. One of the greatest films of all time, just in general. I think so much of this movie just works because of how great the charisma is between all of the characters. Also, just how great the story is, how well crafted it is, all of the lore of the Infinity Stones. This is basically a Thanos solo story, and I really like that. It's the perfect culmination of the MCU. And you guys will see later in the video, not the biggest fan of Endgame, which we'll get to in a second, but I think Infinity War is almost a perfect film. Moving on, we have Captain Marvel. This one's also going in meh, under Ant-Man and the Wasp. I don't want to just hate on this movie because I know a lot of people that hate on this movie are just shitheads, but I think this movie just gives Brie Larson nothing to work with at all whatsoever. I love Brie Larson as an actress in general. She does nothing here. The script is absolutely nothing. I even like The Marvels more than this, which you guys will see. At least in that movie, she has something to do. Here, she just stands around and acts like a piece of cardboard. I really don't like this movie. I rewatched it. I liked it a little more than I did the first time, but still not a big fan. Then we have Captain America and the Winter Soldier. This one's gonna go top of great. It might end up at the bottom of best of best by the end of this video, as we get more and more going into the best of the best and great. But for now, top of great is where it's gonna sit for me. I think this movie is absolutely amazing. If you asked me 2 years ago, it probably would have been in best of the best. But as more projects have come out in the MCU, I think a lot of them have overtaken Winter Soldier in its spot. I think Winter Soldier is still an absolutely awesome, amazing movie. I think it's a great just thriller and very down to earth. And a lot of times, a lot of new MCU projects try to be very street level, and they don't really work in that fashion. Captain America Winter Soldier tries to be street level, and it absolutely is street level. It doesn't ever do anything that is existential in any way, and obviously that works in Steve's arc, and that's just why it works in my opinion as a whole in the movie. It's just, it doesn't take Steve out of his element at all like some of the other solo movies do in my personal opinion. And then we have Captain America the First Avenger. This was gonna go top of good. I think this is better than Avengers Age of Ultron, but I haven't seen First Avenger in a hot minute. I think I rewatched it like last year, but I feel like I've seen Age of Ultron a lot more recently than First Avenger, but First Avenger's solid. It's not a bad movie. It's definitely a good movie. These two are going to probably just go a little bit less and less down on the list just for me personally, because I don't feel like they have as much of an impact as I'd want to, and going back to rewatch the movies, they don't really stand as well on their own, but nevertheless, I think Red Skull is still a great villain, Peggy Carter's great, I think Bucky and Steve's just chemistry is really great in this film, and Chris Evans absolutely bodies this role in my personal opinion. Then we have Captain America Civil War. This is easily going in the best of the best. I love this inner conflict between all of the characters. Everything genuinely feels so real, and I think the best thing is the fact that it sets an amazing foundation for the rest of the universe, and in that it's still an amazing film. You know what I mean? It's not just we're gonna split them up and then we lead into another of two Avengers films. No, it genuinely feels like there are character divisions that will lead you to Infinity War and Endgame. Next up, we have Doctor Strange. Hot take, this is going top of great. It might even end up in best of the best. I think the Doctor Strange movie is absolutely amazing. The reason I call it the Doctor Strange movie and not just a Doctor Strange movie is because I feel like, even though I absolutely love Multiverse Madness, and Multiverse Madness, in my opinion, is higher than Doctor Strange, I do think that this is a great definitive character thing. Like, I wouldn't even say every origin story is like that. Like, I wouldn't say, like, I think the same thing goes for Spider-Man Homecoming. That's a definitive Spider-Man story. But for Captain America, I think Winter Soldier is more of a definitive Captain America story. Doctor Strange is a definitive Doctor Strange story just because, in my opinion, number one, Scott Derrickson directs the out of this film. It is so well executed, in my opinion, and on top of that, the visual elements are all amazing. It's so unique. They introduce this whole new side to the MCU. They're basically adding in magic for the first time. All of that lore is explained really well. I think Mads Mikkelsen, yes, the villain is a little bit cliche and a little bit just copy paste the hero and flip him on the other side. I do see that, but the same thing that I see in Yellow Jacket for Ant-Man that I see in Mads Mikkelsen's character for Doctor Strange is the fact that their motivations are so different that it makes them feel like a completely separate character. Rachel McAdams, also absolutely amazing. I fucking love this movie and no one else can tell me otherwise. And then we have Avengers Endgame. This is probably my hottest take of the entire video. This is going at the top of good. This is a good movie. It's nothing more, in my opinion. It's nothing less. Avengers Endgame is a good film. In my opinion, and I know, again, this might sound absolutely crazy, Avengers Endgame is, like, the first two acts are so average. Like, I understand it pays homage to so many of the things in the MCU, and it is a heartfelt story. I love Tony's sacrifice. The last hour is quite literally an 11 out of 10. The last hour of this film is absolutely amazing, but the first 2 hours aren't anything to write home about, in my opinion. I think, like, once they start going on the quest and they figure out all the time travel stuff, which is basically all the second act, is, like, it's just not very interesting to me. It feels like you're rehashing for the sake of just nostalgic purposes, and I feel like No Way Home was able to use the entire second and third acts to bring in Spider-Man and then tell a compelling story, and I still go back to the first act, and I still like the first act. It's not the case for Endgame here, in my opinion, and I know I'm going to get flamed for this one. I don't care. Then we have Guardians of the Galaxy 1. This one's going in the bottom of best of best. Best of best is going to end up being pretty packed now that I'm looking at the rest of this list, so we might have to shift some things down a little bit. But Guardians of the Galaxy is the introduction to, honestly, the best character group in the MCU, to be honest, and I think all of the characterization works really well. There's so much great lore that's injected here that leads to the rest of the MCU with the Infinity Stones and such, and I think just all the castings are perfect. James Gunn directs the fuck out of this movie. It is just it's such a baseline, just feel-good movie that also has so much heart and is so sad. Next up, we have Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. This one's gonna go at the top of good, I think. It might move up to the bottom of great, maybe. But I rewatched Volume 2 before Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 came out, and I liked it a lot more than I did originally. I still think the third act is a little bit too bonkers, and I think it is a little bit too jokey. My main problem with the entire film is just the fact that they split up the Guardians, which I don't think was a very solid story choice. But other than that, I really enjoyed this one. Next up, we have Spider-Man Far From Home. This one, I'm going to put it below Endgame. I think Far From Home just doesn't work for me. As a Spider-Man fan, this isn't a story that I really wanted to be told. It's not a story that I really care for. It's not in New York at all whatsoever. It's just Spider-Man making dumb decisions with no, like, reasoning behind it. You know what I mean? This doesn't feel like Spider-Man. And you guys will see, I've come around to Homecoming a lot. I made a whole ass video talking about how much I hated Spider-Man Homecoming earlier on the channel, and that was a very long time ago. I take back every bad thing I've said about Homecoming, and we'll talk about Homecoming later in this video. But Far From Home, rewatch upon rewatch, I cannot get into this movie. I think there's so many amazing elements. I think Nick Fury is one of his best performances in this film. Dude, Mysterio, Jake Gyllenhaal is fucking amazing in this movie, and obviously Tom Holland, Zendaya, all of the supporting character, all of the performances in general are good. It's just the story that I'm not a fan of. Next up, we have Incredible Hulk. This is so meh in my opinion. This might go down to bad. Fuck it, I'm moving. No. Okay, I'll leave Captain Marvel up in meh, but just know it could move down to bad. I think Incredible Hulk is pretty bad. I don't watch this one very often. I don't really plan to. I'm not a fan of Edward Norton's performance as Bruce Banner in this film, and just in general, I'm not a fan of just a lot of the elements that they use in these movies, just because it's just not interesting to me. And me personally, like, I would love to see another Hulk movie, but this one isn't it. Next up, we have Iron Man 2. Iron Man 2. We have Iron Man 2. Iron Man 2, in my opinion, is bottom of good. It's a completely fine movie. I think War Machine's evolution in this film is probably the most interesting thing. Black Widow is also pretty cool in this movie. I think Iron Man 3 for me, it's just like a better Iron Man movie overall, so I don't really think of Iron Man 2 that much. Next up, obviously, we have Iron Man 3. I'm going to put Iron Man 3... I'll probably put it right below Far From Home, probably, but that might switch around later. I think Iron Man 3 is a pretty great exploration of trauma, PTSD, and all that kind of stuff. I think it works really, really well. I don't know exactly how realistic it is, but I understand after saving the entire fucking world and basically dying in space and then falling back onto the Earth, I understand how that caused someone some mental trouble. And I think this movie necessarily explains it and explores an element of Tony that really not many other characters, other than like a little bit of Bucky Barnes, a little bit of Spider-Man, and a little bit of Captain America, and a decent amount of Doctor Strange in my personal opinion. All of these those few characters get those things explored. But other than that, a lot of characters don't in the grand scheme of the MCU. Next up, we have Iron Man. I'm going to go top of good for Iron Man. My only thing is, I can't rewatch Iron Man too often just because I watched it so much when I was little, and I still like the movie a lot. It's just, I know everyone else will have it in great or best of the best. That's just not for me personally, but I still think it's a pretty good movie. Next up, we have Black Panther. This one's going to go in good. It'll go near the top of good. I'll put it right below Volume 3. One of the better origin stories, of course, in the MCU, but my main problem with it is it's that very basic Lion King story, but I think every element of this film is really great. The story is just really, really basic, and I know I always say when you do a basic story really, really well, it can be pretty much a perfect movie. This one, it executes it, but not in a perfect way necessarily, just because the third act really, really shifts this movie away from what the core was. I think Michael B. Jordan as Killmonger is amazing, obviously. Chadwick Boseman as Black Panther is absolutely amazing. Every single side performance is absolutely amazing as well. The storytelling itself and the pacing of the film is really, really great. And I also really love the sets, costume design, score. All of those elements are brilliant. But aside from that, I think, again, the third act just goes way too off the rails, and the story itself is just very, very basic. Next up, we have Spider-Man Homecoming. This is going in the top of grade. This might end up going in the best of the best. I switch between Doctor Strange and Homecoming a lot, but I think Homecoming, as you guys know, I used to hate this movie so much. I used to genuinely despise this movie and anyone that liked this movie, but I've come around. I will admit I was so wrong about this movie. This movie absolutely rips. I still think it takes a little bit too much of just Tony Starkisms into this film, but Vulture is one of the greatest villains in the entire MCU. I think, dude, Tom Holland just puts on a great performance, and honestly, every moment of him as Spider-Man and these motivational, really just like important, just essential Spider-Man moments, he plays them perfectly. He never misses a beat, in my opinion. He is perfect for this role. I just think a lot of his stories weren't the best that they chose to tell, and a lot of the storytelling didn't really work out, but I think Homecoming, perfect Spider-Man, not necessarily origin, but origin of his becoming a superhero. You know what I mean? Then we have the first Thor film. I'm gonna put this probably top of meh. I like this one a lot more upon a rewatch, especially right before watching Thor: Love and Thunder. I rewatched this and really, really liked it, but the more I saw it on it, rewatch clips, wasn't the biggest fan of it. I think it goes to the top of meh. Not much else to say. Thor Dark World, this is easily the worst MCU movie. This is going at the bottom of bad. Very, very bad. Just not good at all whatsoever. Then we have Thor Ragnarok. This one's going in best of the best. Under Guardians of the Galaxy. Again, you would have asked me 2-3 years ago, probably would have put it above Guardians of the Galaxy, but I think with Volume 3 coming out, it really, really shifted my perspective on all of the Guardians films. And with Thor Ragnarok, Thor Love and Thunder really shifted my perspective on a lot of other Thor films. And though I think Thor Ragnarok is absolutely amazing, easily the best of the quadrilogy, I guess you could call it, I just think there's a lot of just amazing moments within Thor Ragnarok, and it really transforms this character of Thor and catapults him into Infinity War, which I absolutely love. Then we have Avengers. This one is going to go in great right below, I would go right below Ant-Man, okay? Actually, no, I'll go above. I'm not gonna lie, this is one of my formative movies. This movie has absolutely changed my life. I vividly remember, and I feel like I tell the story every time I do an MCU ranking. After I watched this movie when I was like 12 or something, I went to Walmart and I got this Captain America Nerf shield blaster thing. I was jumping from couch to couch, doing rolls and shit like that. I was literally Captain America. I was literally him, and I've never changed. Like, I still feel like Captain America to this day. This movie has literally changed my life, made me fall in love with comic book movies, made me fall in love with the superhero genre, made me just start getting into superhero stuff. Avengers is probably the most formative movie of my entire life, and that's why it's in great. Getting to some of the TV shows, we have WandaVision. I think WandaVision is actually pretty great. I'm going to put it at bottom of great. This is one of those that's teetering the line between great and good. I think the finale, like the third act structure of this show, is not the strongest. It definitely gets into the Marvel cliches, but I don't mind it. I still think it's pretty good. It explores trauma in a really great way that we haven't really seen in the MCU. Falcon Winter Soldier, I'm going to go good. I'll probably go like right above. I'll go right underneath Endgame. I think this is a great continuation of Endgame, to be honest, and the Captain America story is great here. I think Sam Wilson is going to be really, really awesome as Captain America and Captain America 4. Excited to see Bucky Barnes in the Thunderbolts, and just in general, I really like this one. I think there are obviously villain problems with the Flag Smashers and then the other Agent 13, I don't know his name. The other Captain America guy named by Wyatt Russell, I don't know his name. He's really great in this show, but as a whole, I think it's very poorly structured like a lot of the other shows. Then we have Loki. I'm not sure if Loki season 2 is on here. It is. Okay, so this is just Loki season 1. I'm gonna put Loki season 1 at the top of great, right above WandaVision. Actually, I'll go above Ant-Man. I think Loki season 1 is absolutely amazing. I did a full ranking of all of the MCU shows. You can check it out on the screen right now if you want to go watch it. But I think Loki season 1 is absolutely amazing. I think it's a little bit visually bland. That's the only reason it doesn't top out all of the shows. But I think the story is amazing. It's the only MCU show, in my opinion, aside from one more that's going to be above this, that really does feel like it tells a full story, even if it doesn't. Like, we know that this is just the beginning of the multiversal stuff, the multiversal concepts. We get introduced to the TVA, all of this time stuff that is honestly just so overwhelming as a person who's been watching all these things for so long, and it becomes such an existential thing. It's so overwhelming, yet it feels so conclusive, and it feels so entertaining to me personally. Next up, we have Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. This one's going in good. I'm gonna put it right, honestly, above Black Panther. I think this is one of the better origin stories in the MCU for sure. I think the third act gets a little bit bonkers, but I kind of fuck with it just because it definitely feels like a great evolution within the film. The very beginning's very, very street level, and then it gets to obviously a new place, a new journey, a little bit more fantastical, and the third act really gets into all of the fantastical elements like the dragons, the cave, all of the Ten Rings stuff. I think it works really well in a slow evolution within the film, personally. Next up, we have Black Widow. This one's gonna go, honest to God, top of meh. I hate to put it there, but I just don't think it goes in the good tier. Again, this is one of those that's teetering on the line between good and meh, but if this movie had come out in a more essential time for the character before she was f***ing dead, maybe I would have liked it more. But I think there are still good elements. You know, I think Yelena is absolutely entertaining. I think Red Guardian is so funny, and I'm very excited to see all of these characters in the Thunderbolts. But Black Widow just doesn't feel like a purposeful film, in my opinion. Even when I'm re-watching it, and I'm not watching it in the context of, oh, this is before this movie, after this movie, before Natasha died, blah, 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 blah. When I'm not watching it in that context, I still don't care, because I'm like, okay, I'm excited. What is, like, why is this story essential? What are we getting out of this film? And at the end, you realize you're not getting jack shit out of the film because there's nothing to really move forward with this character that you just learned all of this backstory. And then we have What If. I'm assuming, yes, this is What If Season 1, which I did watch the entirety of. This one is going in meh. Don't really care for What If. I'll probably put it right below Black Widow. What If is cool, but in general, it's just a massive miss as a concept for the MCU because they just don't do really anything entertaining. The best episode, which is one of the best pieces of MCU content in general, in my personal opinion, is the Doctor Strange episode from What If Season 1. That one absolutely fucks. Other than that, not a very great show. Next up, we have Hawkeye. This one is going to go right below Falcon and Winter Soldier. Like, I do go back and forth on these a lot, just because I feel like I said in that video, the pros and cons of both shows pretty much are identical. I just think Falcon and the Winter Soldier tells more of an essential story, whereas Hawkeye feels a little bit less urgent. But the more I think about Hawkeye, I'm like, damn, they had Yelena in there, they had Echo in there, they had Kingpin in there, you know, they had all this Daredevil lore that they were kind of continuing, and plus all of the Clint stuff with his character, Kate Bishop. There was a lot going on in this show, and in my opinion, it didn't really feel like rushed in a weird way. I think the finale, obviously, you know, Marvel, they've not been able to storytell properly within 6 episodes, in my personal opinion, but I think for how much they were balancing, I think they did a pretty good job. And then we have Eternals, and I'm gonna get so flamed for this one, but we're going near the top of great. Honestly, we're going right below Ant-Man. This film, I love this movie. I know people don't like it. This is my second hottest take, just below putting Endgame in good, because I know everyone gets pissed when I put Eternals over Endgame. I don't give a shit, though, because Eternals is so awesome, in my opinion. The CGI is amazing. I know people like to shit on Marvel CGI. CGI in this movie is absolutely awesome. I think Icarus' story is absolutely brilliant. And then just all of the characters in general. I know there's a lot, right? I know there's a shit ton of things going on in this movie, but the timing, the pacing of this film, the 3-act structure, it works so well. Oh, I have to mention, I don't think I mentioned this in the last video where I talked about Eternals, the running of Makari, the way they visualize that is perfect. I really like this movie. I'm not gonna lie to you guys. I just like really all of the elements. I love the story. I love the thematic, the very honestly, like, different ideas about humanity and saving humanity, and let's kill these billion people so 3 more billion can live. It's just a test of being human, and I love that, and it's something, in my opinion, that really the MCU never does. They never take these really just, in my opinion, pretty intricate concepts that would have a lot of people fighting over that concept. They never really do those in those movies, and I think Eternals does it perfect. And then we have Spider-Man No Way Home, and I'm going to put this at the top of good. Actually, I'll put it at the bottom of great. I think Spider-Man No Way Home is pretty great. It has gone down for me over time, of course. Saw this shit like 6 times in theaters. I really absolutely love this film. It's just like, the CGI isn't the best. You know, shot selection isn't the best. You can tell this film, not was scrapped together, it was kind of scrapped together. You know what I mean? Like, they were doing it for the sake of telling a multiversal story, and I get that, but aside from all of my love for Spider-Man, Tobey Maguire, Andrew Garfield, Tom Holland, Zendaya, all of these like really cool elements and story things, as you can tell, I'm just geeking over this movie. I love this film, but there are definitely core problems with it, right? There's definitely visual problems with the film. There's definitely, I mean, I think the score is amazing. Technically, I think it's pretty brilliant in everything that's not very visual related. I think all the suits are really cool. The story itself is pretty brilliant, in my opinion, the way that they bring everyone back to finish Tom's story. I think all of that works really well. I just don't think it's as high regarded as I used to talk about it as. And then we have the original Spider-Man trilogy by Sam Raimi. These, I'm just going to do all of these at once, by the way. This one, they're pretty much all going in best of the best. Spider-Man 1 is going to go right below Infinity War, and then we're going to go Spider-Man 2 is going to be the best movie on this list, and then Spider-Man 3, hot take, but I'm going to probably put this one, like, right below Avengers, right? So, starting with Spider-Man 3, since that's the lowest one for me, this one, I absolutely love this film. I think so much of this movie works. Obviously, the biggest problem, there's a shit ton of villains, but I don't personally mind. I think pretty much all of the villains are pretty cool. I think all of them work to their own extent. Spider-Man 1, which is my second lowest rated out of the trilogy, this movie is absolutely amazing. I used to not like it as much as a kid because I thought it was so corny and outdated, but the older I've gotten, I find all those corny elements to be really cool. I actually find them to be the things that I like the movie most for, you know? And then Spider-Man 2, I don't know how much I can even talk about this one because I feel like I talk about it so much. I love this movie. I fucking love it. It's my honestly, top 3 movies of all time. A brilliance in storytelling, both on a personal level, but also a superhero level. It's not that I find Spider-Man the most entertaining thing about this movie. It's that I find Peter Parker the most entertaining part of this story. Doc Ock is a brilliantly written villain, and the evolution of Spider-Man, Peter Parker, Doc Ock, Aunt May, MJ, all of these characters, they're brought together in such a fluid way, in my opinion. And then we have the Amazing Spider-Man films. Amazing Spider-Man 2, I'm probably gonna go top of meh for this one. I really like this movie, I feel like, a lot more than other people, but that's not necessarily to say it's an amazing film. I think Electro is just a very poorly written villain. There's a lot going on. I do surprisingly think Green Goblin works in this film, but I think story-wise, there was a shit ton going on. Like, I think Andrew and Emma Stone's romance in and of itself is something that you could have explored for a whole movie and not had time for the, like, violence, villain side of it all, right? And then you throw in one villain, and you throw in another villain, and then you have them both get into Peter's personal life. It feels like too much going on. It feels like Spider-Man 3, but the added romance, the added pressure of that romance, it takes away for so much from this film. That's why it's so much lower than Spider-Man 3. Even though at an archetype level, I feel like they are pretty similar. Next up, we have The Amazing Spider-Man, and this one's going to definitely go in good. I would probably put this right below Endgame. I think the first 30 minutes of this film is fairly weak, but aside from that, I think so much of this movie works. I love the suit. The one scene, I rewatched this movie recently, the one scene where he's saving the kid from the burning car that's falling, that one made me tear up. That one really felt like Spider-Man to me. I think Lizard is an amazing villain. I think the stuff with Gwen Stacy's dad is brilliantly done. So many cool elements in this film. I just feel like at the end of the day, it is lackluster in the sense of I don't really feel like I have an emotional attachment to this character, whereas in the first Raimi movie, I instantly felt like I was attached to Tobey Maguire's iteration of the character. And then we have the Venom movies. I'm going to put Venom 1 in meh, but honestly, I'm going to put it above What If. Honestly, I'll put it above Black Widow just because I think it's such a funny movie. And then Venom 2, I'll probably put this below Black Widow. I think Venom 2 is just, once again, too much going on, but I kind of like that they go deeper into the Venom lore personally, and I think Woody Harrelson is also completely fine in this film. Next up, we have Daredevil, and Daredevil is going in best of the best. Honestly, it's going to go right below Civil War. I think Daredevil is one of the greatest shows of all time. All 3 seasons are absolutely amazing. Season 2 is the weakest spot, yet it's still one of the greatest seasons of television ever, which I feel like says a lot. Season 1, brilliant. Season 2, brilliant, but a little bit unfocused. And Season 3 is literally a master class in television making. Like, it is so good. Then we have Moon Knight, which, my opinion, very disappointing show. For this one, I'm gonna have to go, honestly, we'll probably go right underneath Falcon and the Winter Soldier. I think it could have really benefited from a TVMA rating because you don't cut out all the fucking fights in the movie. Nevertheless, I think it's a solid show. I think it gets a little bit unfocused within the last 3 episodes, which is basically half the show, but I think Oscar Isaac's pretty good in the role. That's pretty much the most amount of praise I can give it. Next up, we have Multiverse of Madness. This one is going in best of the best at the bottom for me personally. I think Multiverse of Madness is so awesome. I wish more people like this. I genuinely do not understand why people don't like Multiverse of Madness. Sound away in the comments down below if you don't like Multiverse of Madness and why. I think this movie is absolutely brilliant. I think Doctor Strange's character goes on a brilliant arc here. He has all of this power, yet in the grand scheme of things, he can't really change anything, right? He can see everything. He can visualize and predict and view. He can he has this power to see but not do. And that is so interesting to me. Having to live like that, and having to live like by seeing all of these people around you live their own lives while you kind of know what's gonna happen in the entire multiverse, and you just have to sit there and you can't necessarily do anything about everything. It's such a cool concept to me. I think so many of the multiverse elements work really well. I don't know if Multiverse of Madness is the right title, just because it wasn't necessarily like, let's bring in X-Men, you know, Spiderman, Raimi, whatever, all the movies. Like, it wasn't necessarily that, which I know a lot of people expected. But to be honest, I completely expected that too, and I still came out of the theater super happy, because instead of getting some big mumbo-jumbo multiverse shit, I got a personal Doctor Strange story that was being able to be told through the multiverse, which is even more of an achievement in my opinion. Like, people would have been like, oh my god, Tom Cruise is Iron Man. Like, people would have been like, that's the greatest thing that happened in cinematic history. That's not. Like, the fact that they were able to tell such a personal story in a grand manner, that is more of an achievement to me personally. Next up on the list, we have Miss Marvel. I'm going to put Miss Marvel at the bottom. No, I'll put it at the top of meh. Just because I think so much of Miss Marvel works. Like, I genuinely think it's such a fun show. In terms of being coming of age, it's so exciting. But the villain in the final 3 episodes of this show, they do not fit in a structure at all whatsoever. Basically, the villain is beat by the 5th episode, if I'm not mistaken, and then they do this, like, high school shit in the last episode. It just doesn't really work for me personally. Next up, we have Thor, Love, and Thunder. This one is going to go right above Captain Marvel. Okay, we're going to do a little bit of shifting here now. We're going to move Captain Marvel down to bad, Thor, Love, and Thunder down to bad, and I think we're going to leave it there for those movies. I think Thor, Love, and Thunder, I love Ragnarok, I love Thor's characterization in Infinity War, and I like his evolution into Endgame. And going out of Endgame, there was so much you could have done with this character. He's dealing with so much guilt of the entire literal universe on his back, and then you pump out Thor, Love, and Thunder. I cannot believe this movie is real. So unserious. Taika Waititi should never be in the MCU again. Nevertheless, next up we have, these are some of the shows that I haven't seen. So Defenders, haven't seen this one yet. Iron Fist, haven't seen this one yet. Punisher, I'm working on it, but I haven't finished it yet, so we're going to put that on top of didn't see. Luke Cage, I've seen season 1, haven't seen the rest of the show, putting it in didn't see. Jessica Jones, also haven't tapped into this show yet. But moving on, we have She-Hulk. This one is going to go in meh. I'm going to put it right below, I'll put it above Venom, to be honest with you. Just because I think I enjoy Amazing Spider-Man 2 just because I'm a Spider-Man fan. She-Hulk, I talked about this in my MCU shows ranked. I don't necessarily think this is the worst thing in the world, right? I don't think this is an absolutely horrid show like a lot of other people think. I think the CGI is pretty weird. I think it just lacks a sense of urgency, and that's why I can't really mess with this show as much as I would say that I liked it, because it was so fun, it was so exciting. I think Daredevil was a cool part. I think Tatiana Maslany was really great. Mark Ruffalo was really, really cool. Abomination's inclusion was really, really cool, but there was no urgency, and week to week I never felt like, wow, I need to watch this, because it just wasn't hitting like that, you know? Next up, we have I Am Groot. I don't really give a shit about this. I just put it at bottom of meh, I guess. Like, it's tolerable compared to the stuff in the bad. Marvel Legends, this doesn't count, I don't think. Then we have Morbius. This is going in top tier. No, I'm kidding. This one's going to go probably in bottom of meh. Yeah, this movie's fine. It's completely fine. I wish the final battle wasn't completely in the fucking dark so I could at least see something, but I don't mind it. Wakanda Forever. This one's interesting one. I'm going to go above the original, and it's just going to stay in good. I don't think it's absolutely amazing. I think it works for the circumstances in which it was in. I want to note, though, I've seen this movie twice in theaters and I haven't rewatched it. Pretty much I've seen every single one of these other movies, other than like the newest ones on this list, at least multiple times. I've seen Wakanda Forever only twice, but I think Tenoch Huerta, I think that's how you pronounce his name, is really amazing. I think Angela Bassett is fucking phenomenal. And I think just in general, the actors and actors did a great job of really exerting emotion to make the audience feel it. It wasn't necessarily like, oh, let's do this for story's sake. It genuinely felt like those emotions were transported to the audience, if you know what I'm saying. And then we have Werewolf by Night. I'm gonna put this top of meh. I mean, I think it's actually, I'll put it at bottom of I'll put it bottom of good. It's okay. It's like, it works. I think the gore element of it is kind of their main thing, that they were like, oh my god, like arms are coming off, legs are coming off, black and white. You know, it's saucy, it's cool. I think Michael Giacchino is interesting in the director's chair, but this one doesn't do much for me. I think the lead performance is also good, but this one in general doesn't do much for me. Next up, we have the Guardians of the Galaxy Holiday Special. I'm going to put this probably above Iron Man 2 to be... yeah, I'll put above Iron Man 2 to be honest. I think this works a lot. It's not necessarily bad. Like, it's just weird to compare a holiday special with all of these other projects. And so I think it works. I think it's a fun little silly goofy time. I like that it focuses on Manta and Drax. I think those are two really interesting characters to put into the forefront here. I think it's just a solid, enjoyable time. Then we have Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania. I really wanted to like this movie. I'm going to put this at the bottom of good, going to meh. I did the last time I did a massive tier list like this was after Quantumania, and I think I'd probably put it higher. This movie has not aged well for me. I was so excited for this film. It's one of my most disappointing movies of all time. You can ask any of my friends. I was so excited for this film, and it is one of the biggest disappointments. Not even just comic book movies, just like movies in general. Like, Kang was the only good part about this. I love the Ant-Man movies, and I was like, oh my god, this is gonna be like a quantum heist, right? It wasn't really that. It was them exploring the quantum realm in very meddled CGI that just didn't really work. It was very disappointing. Next up, we have Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. This one is going to end up going in great for me personally. I'll probably go right below Spider-Man 3. I think this does beat out Loki just by a little bit. Amazing conclusion to the Guardians story. I think this is a great way to cap off the story, the characters, and also kind of push them forward. You know, it's a very exciting film just in terms of where are the characters going to go, and the fact that they based it on Rocket. He's the core character, and Bradley Cooper does not phone in for a second. He is absolutely there. I love this movie. It's weird to even talk about it because it's like the film doesn't even feel real. It doesn't feel like the characters are not going to be here anymore, and I'm excited to see the future of them in the MCU. Next up, we have Secret Invasion. Did not see, and I'm putting it at the fucking bottom because I never want to watch the show in my life. Next up, Kraven. This one's not out yet. Don't know why it's on this list. I Am Groot Season 2. Did not watch this one yet either. Deadpool 2. Oh my god, I love this movie. Deadpool 2, we're going to go at top of great, to be honest with you. Or top of good, to be honest, and honestly, no, it's going bottom of great. Let's be so real. I love this film. It doesn't live up to Deadpool 1, but I think Cable is such a cool villain. All of the time travel stuff is so cool. Domino, interesting character. All of these like ensemble bits are so awesome. And I recently rewatched this movie, and it's just really fun. I think the evolution of Deadpool's character is so cool to me, and the inner work, like the emotional side of Deadpool, is more explored in this film, and I really like that. Next up, we have the original Deadpool, and this one is going to end up going in the top of great. Honestly, yeah, it's going best of best. It's one of the greatest comic book films of all time. Teetering 9.2, 9.5, you know what I'm saying? Like, this is it. It's hilarious, it's brutal, it's gross, it's disgusting, it's exciting, it's exhilarating. The story is so fun to me. Like, I love this film so much. And it's just, it at times it can be poop fart jokes, but that's the shit. I laugh at that. Then we got Loki Season 2. Been waiting for this one. We are going near the top of best of best, right underneath Daredevil, right? This, in my opinion, I talk about this show so much. I absolutely love it. Loki Season 2 is life-changing television for me personally. I love this show. I love how they transition from Season 1 to Season 2, how they create such a different and unique and just exciting visual style to this film. And to this show. And they never do nothing in the MCU, nothing in the Marvel multiverse looks as interesting as this show, in my opinion. Pair that with amazing CGI, amazing visual just ideas and concepts, and then on top of that you throw in just the TVA, the Kang the Conqueror elements of it all, Ravonna, B-15, Mobius, Miss Minutes. There are so many cool things that this show just follows through in Season 2. No reshoots. They went straight from Season 1 to Season 2, and it fucks. Every story is perfectly concluded, in my opinion, and obviously Loki has kind of become he who remains, and so I'm excited to see the future of that. Mobius is going to be in Deadpool 3, so there's so much for the characters going forward. But Loki Season 2 in and of itself was a great, amazing, masterful conclusion to these stories. Next up, we have the Marvels 2, sorry. This one's going to go in good, bottom of good, right above Quantumania. Wasn't expecting to like the Marvels more than Quantumania, to be completely honest with you, but here we are. At least this gives something Brie Larson to do. Iman Vellani is absolutely amazing, and Tiana Paris is also absolutely amazing as well. I think the story in general is just a little bit lackluster. Then we have What If Season 2. Have not finished this just yet. And then finally we have Echo. Echo, I hate to break it to you guys, this one is gonna go in meh. Honestly, at least Morbius can be memed. That's all I'm gonna say. Echo to me, and I did a full review, you can check that out, along with the MCU shows ranked. Echo to me is just such a lazy concept, right? You market it as Daredevil season 3.5, you know, it's coming off of the spin-off of Hawkeye. You have all of these interesting ideas for this character that is supposed to be grounded, her powers are literally to echo other heroes, villains. She's an anti-hero. Anyone's powers, right? She's in comics with Daredevil. She has such an interesting street-level background. But guess what? They go for the cultural story, which I don't mind. Good for them. Cultural representation, I think that is absolutely amazing, and that is 100% needed in the MCU. I think that is essential to be something that is at the forefront. But when you shorten a season from 6 episodes to 5 episodes, you say every single episode is an hour long, when in reality, literally every episode, episode 1 starts at 15 minutes, the final episode is 30 minutes. It constantly goes down, except for like episodes 2 and 3 are 2 minutes apart, the other way around. I do not like the fact that they felt, number one, they mismarketed the hell out of this show. Second of all, they're burying this concept of who Echo actually is. Yes, the cultural stories are important, but when you use that concept and then you shorten it to 5 episodes, you have Kingpin in there, you have Daredevil in there, and you have them for the most minimal, least important, least entertaining aspects, obviously I'm going to be annoyed. You know what I mean? Like, it is just something that, and it's frustrating because I want more representation in the MCU. I love the representation and the way that they've executed it in Falcon and the Winter Soldier, Moon Knight, Miss Marvel, all of these other things. They represent it so well. Even Shang-Chi, they do a great job. But guess what? Those also balance. They balance story. They balance story and culture. They balance story, culture, and action, which is what the superhero genre is based off of. And guess what? Echo does none of that. It balances zero, zip, nada. This show is so disappointing to me. But guys, that wraps up my entire tier list for the Marvel Cinematic Multiverse. Again, let me know your ranking for all of these films and shows in the comments down below. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Peace.